Number 1. Galactic Disasters. Let's start our journey through the dark side of Star Wars gaming, with the absolute worst titles that somehow made it to store shelves. Understanding why these games failed teaches us what makes Star Wars gaming truly special when it works. Star Wars Jedi Arena, 1983, sits at the bottom with a 4.9 out of 10 rating from 73 IMDb reviews. This Atari 2600 title featured two motionless Jedi deflecting seeker remote blasts while attempting to penetrate each other's shields. The core problem wasn't just primitive technology. It was the fundamental misunderstanding of what made lightsaber duels exciting. Players had to simultaneously attack and defend with awkward joystick movements, creating the tiring experience critics described. Star Wars Masters of Teräs Käsi, 1997, demonstrates how ambitious concepts can collapse without proper execution. This PlayStation fighting game introduced the martial art Teräs Käsi, meaning steel fist, in the expanded universe, as the Empire's counter to Jedi combat skills. However, the game treated lightsabers like blunt weapons rather than elegant energy blades, fundamentally breaking the Star Wars power fantasy. The slow character movement and unbalanced roster made competitive play impossible. Kinect Star Wars, 2012, represents motion control technology's most spectacular failure in the Star Wars universe. While the concept of force gestures and lightsaber motion seemed perfect for Kinect, the hardware couldn't deliver precision gameplay. The infamous Galactic Dance-Off mode, featuring characters like Han Solo performing to songs like I'm Han Solo, a parody of Raiden Solo, became a meme for all the wrong reasons. This marked LucasArts' final release before Disney's acquisition. Star Wars Flight of the Falcon, 2003, illustrates the Game Boy Advance's fundamental limitation in handling complex 3D space combat. While controlling the Millennium Falcon through original trilogy-inspired missions sounded perfect, the hardware couldn't deliver smooth movement or satisfying targeting systems. The cramped screen made navigation frustrating, and the limited button layout prevented intuitive control schemes that space combat requires. Star Wars Rebel Assault, 1993, represents an early attempt to merge interactive gameplay with film-quality visuals through full-motion video technology. Released on PC, Mac, 3DO, and Sega CD, this on-rails shooter showcased impressive pre-rendered sequences but suffered from the fundamental problem that FMV games faced. Players felt like passengers rather than pilots. The revolutionary visuals couldn't compensate for minimal player agency and imprecise targeting mechanics. Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace, 1999, launched across multiple platforms as LucasArts' major tie-in to the prequel trilogy's debut. The game attempted to recreate key scenes from Tatooine's deserts to Naboo's royal palace, but each platform version encountered different technical challenges that prevented any from delivering a cohesive experience. Most critically, the pod racing sequences, which should have been highlights, felt sluggish and unresponsive compared to the film's visceral speed. These gaming disasters prove that slapping a Star Wars logo on broken gameplay is like putting racing stripes on a broken pod racer. It's still going nowhere fast. Have you checked out the new hype feature on YouTube Mobile? Simply like this video and another button appears underneath. Give it a try. Number 2. Padawan Attempts. Now, we examine games that demonstrated genuine potential and delivered memorable moments, even when falling short of greatness. These titles teach us valuable lessons about how technical ambition must balance with design fundamentals. Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 2, 2010, showcases how a sequel can technically improve while losing narrative focus. Developer LucasArts enhanced the graphics engine and expanded Starkiller's Force abilities beyond the original game's already impressive powers, but the story felt rushed through development. The campaign's brevity particularly disappointed fans who expected the same narrative depth that made the original Force Unleashed compelling. This demonstrates how technical polish cannot substitute for strong storytelling in Star Wars media. Star Wars Obi-Wan, 2001, attempted to create the definitive lightsaber combat system for Xbox, but encountered multiple production challenges. The game suffered from visual problems that made it appear dated even at launch, and critically, LucasArts couldn't secure Ewan McGregor's voice work, forcing them to cast a replacement who couldn't match McGregor's distinctive delivery. The lightsaber mechanics, which should have been the game's centerpiece, felt imprecise and lacked the weight that makes blade combat satisfying. Star Wars Battlefront 2015 represents a fascinating case study in presentation versus depth. EA DICE created visually stunning recreations of iconic Star Wars locations with authentic sound design that perfectly captured the film's audio landscape. The game achieved commercial success with over 14 million copies sold by 2017. But many longtime Battlefront fans felt disappointed by the absence of single-player campaigns, the restriction to only original trilogy content, and mechanics that differed significantly from Pandemic Studios' beloved earlier entries. This illustrates how visual fidelity and brand recognition can drive sales while failing to satisfy core gameplay expectations. Number 3. Promising younglings. Here we encounter games that delivered solid entertainment value and showed developers beginning to understand what made Star Wars interactive experiences work. These titles built important foundations for future classics. Star Wars: The Clone Wars 2002 by Pandemic Studios provided early insight into their approach to large-scale Star Wars combat. Released before their famous Battlefront series, this game featured ground and vehicle battles that conveyed the massive scope of the Republic's war against the Separatists. Players commanded clone armies across multiple planets, experiencing combined arms warfare that captured the Clone Wars' epic scale. While the graphics haven't aged gracefully, the core concept of commanding diverse military units in recognizable Star Wars conflicts established gameplay principles that Pandemic would refine in later projects. Star Wars: Bounty Hunter 2002 explored Jango Fett's backstory during the crucial decade between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. The game revealed how Fett became entangled with Count Dooku and ultimately earned his role as the clone army template through his confrontation with the fallen Jedi Komari Vosa. This narrative filled important gaps in prequel-era lore while showcasing Mandalorian combat techniques through dual blaster gameplay. The exploration of Star Wars' criminal underworld added texture to the galaxy's political complexity during the Republic's final years. Star Wars: Squadrons 2020 delivered the authentic X-Wing simulator experience that fans had requested since the 1990s flight combat classics. EA Motive created fully immersive first-person cockpit experiences across both Rebel and Imperial starfighter designs, with detailed instrumentation and flight physics that honored the original space combat games. While the multiplayer community diminished relatively quickly due to limited game mode variety, the core flying mechanics successfully captured the visceral excitement of piloting iconic Star Wars spacecraft through asteroid fields and capital ship battles. The Force grows stronger as we ascend toward gaming greatness. These upcoming titles defined what Star Wars excellence looks like when developers truly understand the source material. Number 4. Jedi Knights. At this level, we discover games that successfully captured Star Wars magic while delivering exceptional gameplay experiences. These titles demonstrate how understanding both the source material and gaming fundamentals creates lasting entertainment. LEGO Star Wars 2. The original trilogy, 2006, achieved something remarkable by balancing family accessibility with sophisticated game design. Traveler's Tales recreated the complete original trilogy through LEGO's distinctive visual style, transforming dramatic moments like Luke's confrontation with Vader into charming wordless comedy without losing emotional impact. The game earned an 86 out of 100 from critics because it successfully encouraged exploration and experimentation rather than simply rushing players through familiar plot points. This approach created genuine replayability as players discovered hidden areas and unlocked dozens of characters, each with unique abilities that opened new gameplay possibilities. Star Wars Jedi: Fallen Order 2019 marked Respawn Entertainment's successful entry into Star Wars gaming by combining proven gameplay mechanics with authentic franchise storytelling. The game merged Metroidvania exploration with Souls-like combat difficulty, creating progression systems that felt both challenging and rewarding. Cal Kestis emerged as a compelling protagonist whose journey of surviving Order 66 and reconnecting with the Force resonated emotionally with fans who understood the tragedy of the Jedi Purge. Despite technical issues at launch, The core experience demonstrated how modern game design could serve Star Wars narratives rather than constraining them. Star Wars: Empire at War, 2006, delivered the definitive Star Wars real-time strategy experience by understanding that galactic warfare operates on multiple scales simultaneously. Petroglyph games created systems where players managed economic development, fleet construction, and tactical combat across dozens of star systems during the Galactic Civil War period. The game's campaign mode allowed players to experience the conflict from both Imperial and Rebel perspectives, showing how resource management and strategic planning ultimately determined military outcomes more than individual battle heroics. Star Wars: Republic Commando, 2005, succeeded by focusing on a rarely explored aspect of Star Wars: ground-level infantry combat during the Clone Wars. LucasArts created a squad-based first-person shooter that required players to coordinate 4 elite clone commandos through complex battlefield scenarios. The game's emotional core came from the developing relationships between identical soldiers who discovered their individual personalities despite sharing genetic templates. The tactical gameplay demanded that players master defensive positioning, coordinated assaults, and specialized roles like demolitions or sniping, making every engagement feel like a military operation rather than a simple shooting gallery. Number 5. Master Warriors. We've reached the upper echelon where games didn't just succeed. They defined what Star Wars excellence looks like when developers truly understand both the franchise's core appeal and sophisticated game design principles. Star Wars Jedi: Survivor, 2023, demonstrates how sequels should build upon established foundations while expanding creative ambitions. Respawn Entertainment improved every major system from Fallen Order. Combat now offers 5 distinct lightsaber stances that fundamentally change gameplay approaches. Exploration spans massive open areas that reward thorough investigation, and the Metroidvania progression creates meaningful backtracking incentives through new abilities. OpenCritic's Mighty rating with an 84 out of 100 score from 182 critics reflects how the game balances technical ambition with focused design. The story meaningfully advances Cal Kestis's character development beyond simple power progression, exploring themes of hope and community that resonate with Star Wars' deeper philosophical elements. Star Wars: Battlefront 2, 2005, the original Pandemic Studios version, established the template for massive-scale Star Wars multiplayer experiences that competitors still struggle to match. The game improved upon its predecessor through expanded hero characters from across all film eras, enhanced map design that encouraged tactical variety, and most importantly, the Galactic Conquest mode that transformed individual battles into strategic campaign elements. The original story campaign following the 501 Saint Legion provided context for the Empire's transformation while humanizing clone troopers as individuals rather than faceless soldiers. Even after EA's modern Battlefront revivals, dedicated communities continue supporting this classic because its gameplay systems prioritized player agency over cinematic spectacle. Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, 2002, achieved something unprecedented in Star Wars gaming: lightsaber combat that felt authentically lethal and precise, rather than flashy but ineffective. Raven Software understood that lightsaber dueling required both offensive creativity and defensive mastery, creating a combat system where blocking, dodging, and force power integration determined victory more than button-mashing reflexes. Kyle Katarn's return to Jedi abilities after abandoning the Force created narrative stakes that justified the gameplay progression from basic gunplay to advanced lightsaber techniques. The moral choice system influenced both story outcomes and available force powers, making philosophical alignment feel mechanically meaningful rather than superficial. Number 6. Legendary Champions. These games achieved something extraordinary. They created experiences that feel authentically Star Wars while establishing new standards for their respective genres. Understanding why these titles succeeded helps explain what separates good licensed games from genuine classics. Star Wars: Rogue Squadron, 1998, revolutionized starfighter simulation on Nintendo 64 by prioritizing gameplay feel over technical complexity. Factor 5's achievement wasn't just creating responsive flight controls. They understood that Star Wars space combat succeeds when players feel like skilled pilots rather than struggling with complicated systems. The game's 8.5 out of 10 user rating reflects how successfully it captured the essential experience of flying X-Wings through the Battle of Hoth or navigating A-Wings through Imperial ambushes. The mission design recreated iconic film moments while expanding them into full gameplay scenarios, proving that adaptation could enhance source material rather than simply copying it. Star Wars Dark Forces, 1995, established the foundation for all future Star Wars first-person experiences by introducing Kyle Katarn and proving that the franchise could work brilliantly in shooter format. LucasArts created something more than a Doom clone with Star Wars textures. They built environments that felt like lived-in Imperial facilities and developed a protagonist whose mercenary background justified his combat expertise. The game's 7.9 out of 10 rating from over 1,200 IMDb reviews demonstrates its lasting impact, having launched a trilogy that would evolve into the beloved Jedi Knight series. Dark Forces succeeded because it understood that Star Wars works best when players feel like they're participating in the rebellion rather than simply observing it. Star Wars Jedi Knight, Dark Forces 2, 1997, bridged the critical gap between conventional shooting mechanics and force-powered gameplay through innovative design choices that future games would struggle to match. The live-action cutscenes weren't just technical showpieces. They provided fans with new Star Wars storytelling during the long gap between Return of the Jedi and the prequel trilogy. With an impressive 8.4 out of 10 from 1,500 IMDb reviews, the game succeeded because it made moral choices feel consequential through gameplay mechanics, rather than just dialogue options. Players could choose between light and dark force powers, fundamentally altering both combat approaches and story outcomes in ways that reflected Star Wars' central themes about choice and destiny. Number 7. Grand Masters. At this rarefied level, we encounter games that transcended their medium to become essential Star Wars experiences. These titles demonstrate how video games can contribute meaningfully to franchise mythology while delivering uncompromised entertainment. Star Wars TIE Fighter, 1994, achieved something unprecedented in Star Wars media. It made players genuinely invested in the Imperial perspective without compromising the franchise's moral clarity. With an exceptional 8.7 out of 10 rating from 490 IMDb reviews, this stands as the highest-rated Star Wars game from the 20th century. Totally, games understood that the Empire's military efficiency and technological superiority could create compelling gameplay without endorsing fascist ideology. Flying Imperial craft revealed how individual Imperial officers might rationalize their service while maintaining personal honor codes. The game's sophisticated mission structure demonstrated that complex space combat simulation could coexist with authentic Star Wars storytelling, establishing design principles that influenced flight simulators for decades afterward. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, 2005, took the KOTOR formula and transformed it into something philosophically profound that mainstream Star Wars rarely attempts. Obsidian Entertainment had only 14 months to create a sequel to one of gaming's most beloved RPGs, yet they produced a meditation on the nature of the Force itself that challenged fundamental Star Wars assumptions. The game explores concepts like Force wounds, the cyclical nature of galactic conflict, and whether the galaxy might be better without Force users entirely. These themes emerged through character interactions with companions like Kreia, who questioned whether the traditional light side/dark side dichotomy oversimplified moral reality. On PC, the restored content modification transforms this from a flawed masterpiece into an unquestionable classic that examines the philosophical implications of power and influence in ways the films never attempted. Number 8. The Chosen One. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, 2003, stands unrivaled as the greatest achievement in Star Wars gaming, representing what happens when developers truly understand both exceptional game design and the deeper philosophical elements that make Star Wars endure across generations. BioWare's masterpiece earned universal critical acclaim with a 94 out of 100 Metacritic score from 72 professional reviews and achieved the highest user ratings among Star Wars games on IMDb. These numbers reflect something deeper than technical excellence. They demonstrate how KOTOR succeeded in creating an interactive Star Wars story that felt as meaningful and emotionally resonant as the original films themselves. The game's narrative brilliance emerges from its fundamental design philosophy. Rather than simply retelling existing Star Wars stories, KOTOR creates space for players to forge their own legendary journey. Set thousands of years before the movies, the Old Republic era provided complete creative freedom while respecting established Force mythology and galactic political structures. This temporal distance allowed BioWare to explore familiar themes like redemption, sacrifice, and the seductive nature of power without being constrained by film continuity. What elevates KOTOR beyond mere technical achievement is its sophisticated approach to moral choice and character development. The light side and dark side paths aren't simply cosmetic differences. They fundamentally alter dialogue options, story outcomes, Force abilities, and companion relationships in ways that make philosophical alignment feel mechanically meaningful. Players genuinely struggled with difficult decisions because BioWare crafted scenarios where the traditionally right choice carried genuine costs and the wrong choice offered tempting benefits. The companion system created some of gaming's most memorable relationships through characters like Bastila Shan, whose own struggle between light and dark mirrored the player's journey, and HK-47, whose darkly comedic observations about organic behavior provided both humor and insight into the game's themes. Each companion brought unique perspectives on galactic history, Force philosophy, and personal motivation that enriched the overall narrative beyond simple gameplay utility. KOTOR's combat system successfully translated pen-and-paper RPG complexity into accessible real-time mechanics while preserving the strategic depth that makes character progression meaningful. Every Force power felt earned through player choice and character development rather than simply unlocked through level advancement. The progression from vulnerable Republic soldier to powerful Force user created genuine emotional investment in the character's growth. Most importantly, KOTOR delivered one of gaming's greatest plot twists in a way that recontextualized the entire experience while honoring everything that came before. The revelation works because it emerges naturally from the story's themes about identity, redemption, and the possibility of change rather than feeling like a cheap shock designed for surprise value. This combination of narrative sophistication, mechanical depth, and authentic Star Wars atmosphere explains why KOTOR continues influencing RPG design more than 2 decades after release. It proves that licensed games can transcend their source material to become essential experiences that expand rather than simply exploit beloved franchises. From motion control disasters to RPG masterpieces, this journey through Star Wars gaming history proves that the Force finds its way into truly exceptional interactive experiences when developers understand both technical craft and the deeper themes that make the galaxy far, far away eternally compelling. The greatest Star Wars adventures await those willing to explore beyond the films.